Michael, we just got a breaking news update from CENTCOM that as of 9:30 this morning, 3 U.S. service members have been killed in action and 5 seriously wounded as part of...
The text hit the duty phone at midnight. Confirmed, 3 U.S. troops down at Tower 22. The next line was worse. Possible second wave plan in motion. They're using our systems against us. The desert outpost sat on the edge of nowhere. Flat, tan earth, a ribbon of fence, and floodlights that turned dust into glitter. In the briefing photos, the place looked simple. A few trailers, a radar dome, a flag snapping hard in the wind. After the attack, it looked like something had punched a hole in the night and left smoke behind.
I want to point out that we had a tough day last night in the Middle East. We lost 3 brave souls in an attack on one of our bases.
The real-world headlines had already carved the basic facts into public memory. A drone strike at Tower 22 in Jordan killed 3 American service members and wounded many more. That much was official. Everything else in this story is what investigators feared could happen next. By sunrise, Special Agent Mara Klein was inside a windowless operations room that smelled like burnt coffee and warm plastic. 3 rows of monitors glowed green and blue. On one screen, a map of the region pulsed with red pins. On another, a live feed showed the outpost's wrecked shelter, sandbags slumped like tired shoulders. Mara wasn't military. She was FBI, counterterrorism detail, assigned to a joint cell that spent most days chasing invisible money and even more invisible messages. She'd seen plots die on spreadsheets before. She'd seen networks collapse because someone mistyped a routing number, but she'd never seen a text like that. Second wave plan in motion.
Cautionary words from President Biden, who says the U.S. shall respond after Iranian-backed militants killed 3 American service personnel and injured at least 30, all stationed in Jordan.
The call came from JTTF Command, a temporary fusion center spun up in a borrowed federal suite halfway between an airport and a shipping port. Fluorescent lights, glass-walled conference rooms, a seal on the wall that looked too clean for what they were about to do. The directive was simple. Find who built the pathway. Find who pushed the button. Stop whatever comes next.
What we're learning now, a joint operation between Israel and the U.S.
About a short time ago, the U.S. began major combat operations in Iran. As you heard Ian mention there, the president said the objective is to defend American people to eliminate imminent threats from the Iranian regime.
In the first meeting, the room split into 2 kinds of people. The uniformed officers wanted targets and timetables. The agents wanted data and proof. A Marine captain slammed a palm on the table. "You want me to wait for subpoenas while they load another drone?" Mara didn't flinch. "If we strike blind, we miss the brain. We need the brain." That's when HSI walked in. Rafael Torres looked like a man who'd learned to sleep on airplanes. He dropped a folder, thick with seizure sheets and shipping manifests. "I'm not here to argue strategy," he said. "I'm here because the drone didn't appear out of thin air. Somebody bought parts. Somebody moved parts. Somebody paid for it." He slid a photo across the table. A small circuit board on an evidence mat, no bigger than a credit card. A dab of conformal coating that shined under lab light. "This was recovered from the debris field," he said. "Not a warhead piece. A guidance component. Export controlled." Mara's eyes tracked to the serial micro-etching. It wasn't a brand name that mattered. It was the supply chain. Because supply chains had footprints, and footprints could be followed.
Now, 5 Investigates was the first to report that FBI activity there is connected to this case.
Tonight here at 6, we have live team coverage. Let's begin.
The first breakthrough came from a sound nobody in the room could hear. A ping. A handshake. A brief connection between 2 machines that had no business speaking. A cyber analyst, young, pale, hoodie under a blazer, pointed to a timestamp. "We pulled base network logs for the week before the strike," he said. "There's a device that connected for 14 seconds, then vanished. It used a spoofed credential that matched a contractor account. A contractor. The room went still. The Marine captain's jaw tightened. Are you saying someone walked into that outpost with a device? Mara answered softly. I'm saying someone got close enough to leave a breadcrumb. They named it Operation Glass Lantern because that's what the network felt like. Transparent from a distance, but blinding when you stared straight into it. The goal wasn't revenge. The goal was prevention. The second wave text wasn't theater. It was a warning. Mara and Torres built the story backward. Start with the drone, then the board, then the shipment, then the payment, then the person who thought they were untouchable. On a whiteboard, Torres drew a simple line: factory to freight forwarder to logistics consultant to a storefront company with a polite name. The company's address led to a strip mall office suite with frosted glass and a fake plant dying in the corner. The lease was signed by someone who'd never exist long enough to be arrested. Then Mara added the digital layer, a cluster of encrypted messages exchanged through an app that promised privacy. Burner phones bought with cash, SIM cards activated under stolen identities. But even privacy has gravity. Messages need servers, servers need maintenance. Maintenance leaves traces. The first trace was an image, not a photo, a screenshot. A low-level courier picked up on an unrelated weapons charge had tried to impress someone. He'd flashed a message thread like a trophy. The screenshot was grainy. The text was in Arabic, but the background was sharp. A tiled floor with a specific pattern, blue and white diamonds scuffed near the edge. An analyst recognized it from social media posts. A cafe in Baghdad. Same tiles, same chipped grout. So the next meeting wasn't in a war room. It was in a quiet office where Torres opened a laptop and played a silent surveillance clip. A corner table, a man in a charcoal jacket, a woman with a red scarf, a third figure who kept his back to cameras. The man's hand moved under the table. Something small changed owners. Visuals mattered. Editors would later love this shot. The cafe's neon sign flickering, reflections of headlights sliding across the window, a waiter carrying tea like nothing in the world was wrong. Because that's how networks survive. They hide in normal. Who is the back? Mara asked. Torres didn't answer with a name. He answered with a method. We tag the phone, he said. We don't chase the face. We chase the signal. The next 72 hours were a tech cat and mouse that never touched the ground. A device ID popped up near a freight warehouse, then near a clinic, then near a mosque. It moved like a nervous thought. It never stayed long enough to be caught. Then, at 3:47 a.m., the same device connected, briefly, to a Wi-Fi network at a hotel near an airport. The cyber team didn't sleep. They didn't blink. They waited for the tiniest mistake, and the mistake came as a second text. Death confirmed. Statement ready. Attached was a video file. Mara watched it once, then again. The clip showed an Iranian official, face lit dramatically, voice solemn, announcing that the supreme leader had died, calling for immediate retaliation, urging followers to answer fire with fire. It was designed to ignite a region in minutes. It was also a fake. Deep-fake artifacts, audio stitching, a compression pattern that didn't match the claimed camera. The clip wasn't meant to convince experts. It was meant to flood phones, to push people into streets, to give cover for missiles, drones, and chaos.
The FBI now says it's investigating leaked U.S. intelligence that appears to detail an Israeli plan to attack Iran.
The betrayal twist landed in the smallest detail. The file metadata carried a hidden watermark, one used by a niche editing suite sold in the United States to government contractors. Not a common consumer tool, not a random hacker's toy. Mara leaned back, staring at the screen until her eyes hurt. This isn't just a proxy operation, she said. This is procurement. This is access. She thought about the 3 dead at the outpost, not as symbols, as people with laundry waiting at home, as people who'd called family the night before and promised they'd be careful. The human cost wasn't abstract. It was a chair that would stay empty. It was a voicemail nobody could delete. And now, someone was trying to weaponize grief into a wider war. If you're still with me, tell us in the comments which detail felt most real, the drone part or the money part, because the money part was about to get ugly. Torres pulled banking records from a subpoena return. Shell companies, layered transfers, and one familiar pattern: payments broken into small, clean amounts routed through trading firms with consulting in their names. Then the funds resurfaced as real assets: apartments, vehicles, warehouse leases. A single payment chain ended at a luxury property management office in a Gulf city. Glass towers, marble floors, a lobby fountain that sounded like calm. The account holder's signature on the paperwork belonged to a U.S. citizen contractor named Owen Bale. Not an extremist, not a soldier, not a spy in the movies. Just a man with a badge lanyard, a clearance, and bills. When agents pulled Bale's travel history, the timeline tightened like a noose. He'd visited the region before the attack. He'd entered the country under a business pretext. He'd met someone twice in two places, always on camera angles that hid faces. Mara wanted to grab him immediately. The Marine captain wanted a helicopter. The attorneys wanted probable cause that could survive a courtroom. This was the internal conflict that broke teams, the need to act and the need to prove. They compromised with surveillance. For 11 days, teams watched a suburban house with a teal front door and a dead patch of grass shaped like a rectangle. Bale left at the same time every morning. He wore the same gray baseball cap. He drove the same white pickup, always washed, always spotless, like he was scrubbing more than dirt. At night, the curtains stayed drawn. No visitors, no noise, except for one detail: a backroom window that glowed blue between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m., like a monitor in a dark room. Then came the evidence discovery that changed everything. A trash pull. A black bag, damp from rain, lifted carefully into an evidence bin. Inside, shredded invoice fragments, thermal paper receipts, and a cardboard sleeve for a high-end encrypted phone. Torres held up the sleeve. "He's operational," he said, "not just greedy." The next morning, they got the second wave confirmation. An overseas partner tipped a pattern of chatter. Coordinated launches discussed in coded phrases: rain, wedding, candles. It mapped onto known tactics used in past regional barrages, the kind that mixed drones and missiles to saturate defenses. In April 2024, Iran launched a massive drone and missile attack toward Israel, publicly reported as more than 300 projectiles, including 170 drones. The region had already seen what rain looked like. Source: in this story's world, the fear was a copycat night, wider, messier, aimed not just at Tel Aviv, but at US-linked installations across the Gulf. And now the deepfake video made sense. It was the spark. The launches were the fire. The contractor was the hand holding the matchbook. They moved. A warrant, a plan, a time window so tight it felt like a trap closing on their own fingers. The tactical team staged 2 blocks away. Dark uniforms, quiet radios, a ballistic shield catching a street lamp's glow. A drone camera hovered high, its feed showing the teal door, the driveway, the fence line. Mara stood behind the line, headset pressed to one ear. She wasn't kicking the door. She was listening for the moment the network realized it had been seen. "Breach in 30, a team leader said. A neighbor's porch light clicked on. A dog barked once, then stopped. "Breach," the leader said. The ram hit the door with a dull crack. The teal door folded inward, a flash of movement. Agents surged through a narrow hallway lined with framed landscape photos, mountains, lakes, places that looked too peaceful to belong here. "Hands!" someone shouted. In the back room, under that blue window glow, they found the workstation. 2 monitors, a laptop, a portable drive taped under the desk with silver duct tape, and on a shelf, an ordinary hardcover book, its spine slightly thicker than it should be. a hollowed-out compartment. Inside, micro SD cards wrapped in wax paper, tucked beside a folded sheet of numbers. Not a bomb manual, not a map, just coordinates, call signs, and a set of timing blocks. Bale was found in a closet, breathing hard, phone in his hand. When they pulled him out, his eyes didn't look furious. They looked disappointed, like a man whose luck had finally betrayed him. Torres read him his rights. Bale didn't speak. He stared at Mara. Then he said one sentence. "You're too late." That's when the watch floor erupted. An analyst shouted, "New uplink!" A server overseas just lit up with activity as if a hand had slapped it awake. The timing blocks on the folded sheet matched the traffic spike, minute for minute. The second wave was not a rumor. It was a schedule.
We're just getting some breaking news, Matt, that the hits just keep on coming. Iran's chief...
Mara's voice went cold. "Where is the server?" "Not US-based," the analyst said. "But we can disrupt the relay." A cyber supervisor hesitated. "If we hit it wrong, we tip the whole network." "And if we don't?" Mara snapped. "People die." They chose a surgical move. Jam the relay path, poison the routing, force a reconnect that would reveal the controller. It was digital pressure, applied like a thumb to a pulse point. For 9 minutes, nothing happened. The room held its breath. Then the controller blinked online from a new location. Not a war zone, not a cave, a rented office suite above a travel agency in a city that sold itself as neutral and safe. That was the chain reaction. Within an hour, a partner unit overseas hit the office. A door flew open. A man was cuffed. Another ran and slipped on a stairwell, dropping a phone that skittered like a bug across tile. Their arrests triggered 5 more. Couriers, coders, a broker who'd been laundering payments through commodity trades. Back in the US, Bale finally spoke once he realized the relay had failed. He didn't confess out of conscience. He confessed out of calculation. He said he'd been approached at a contractor conference, offered money, promised protection. He said the network didn't need him to love the cause. It needed him to open doors, to plug in a device, to let malware ride inside a trusted badge. Then Mara asked the question that always mattered most. "Did you know people would die?" Bale swallowed. He looked at the floor. "I thought it was warnings," he said. "Pressure, not bodies." That was the second human cost moment, and it didn't need a speech. It sat in the silence after his answer, because somewhere, families were planning funerals. Somewhere, a unit was packing gear into duffels that would never be picked up. Somewhere, a kid would hear the words, "killed in action," and not understand what the world had just taken. In the days that followed, the public story stayed vague. It always does. Ongoing investigation. No further details. Partners working together. The quiet language of prevention. But inside the case file, the narrative was brutal and clear. A strike at Tower 22 had been enabled by access. A deepfake video had been prepared to accelerate retaliation. A second wave launch plan had been timed to exploit confusion, to make defenses look weak, to make leaders feel cornered. And it almost worked. In the last meeting before the task force dispersed, the Marine captain came back to the same table where he demanded immediate action. He didn't slam his palm this time. He placed 3 laminated photos down, face up, the fallen service members. No gore, no drama, just portraits, smiles, uniforms, normal human faces. "I didn't know them," he said, "but my people did." Mara looked at the photos and felt the weight of the case settle in her bones. She'd spent years chasing plots that never made the news. She'd learned that success often looked like nothing happening. No sirens, no rubble, no flags at half-staff. Torres cleared his throat. "We stopped the second wave," he said. "That matters." "It does," Mara answered, "but it doesn't unkill anyone." The file ended with a list of seized items, drives, phones, bank records, and one thin notebook with a travel agency logo embossed on the cover. It contained route sketches and meeting windows. It was mundane. It was deadly. It proved the point that the modern battlefield sometimes starts in an office chair. Before she left, Mara stood alone in the operations room. The monitors were dark now. The maps were gone. Only the reflection of her own face stared back from black glass. If you want more stories that focus on how investigations really unfold, money, devices, human mistakes, subscribe for more. And if you think prevention is invisible, remember this case. The loudest nights often get stopped in silence. Outside, the sun dropped behind the parking structure, turning the sky the color of old brass. Mara walked to her car and sat for a moment without starting it. In her mind, she saw the teal door splintering, the micro SD cards wrapped in wax paper, the blue glow in the back room, the desert floodlights at Tower 22, and she wondered how many more doors were already open. Remember, this story is a work of fiction created for educational and entertainment purposes. If you found this compelling, let us know what you'd investigate next in the comments. Thanks for watching.